Hello, this is Dr. Grande. Today I will analyze the case of Adrianne Reynolds. First, I'll look at the background of this case, move to the timeline of the crime, then offer my analysis. Adrianne Lee Reynolds was born on September 12, 1988, in El Dorado, Arkansas. Her mother, Carolyn, was only 15 years old at the time, so Adrianne was adopted by her grandparents, Tony and Beverly Reynolds. In 1992, the couple divorced, and Tony was forced to pay child support for his granddaughter. 3 years later, Beverly moved to Longview, Texas, taking Carolyn and Adrianne with her. In Texas, Adrianne found her situation to be challenging. She would later report that she started using marijuana at the age of 9. Within 3 years, she was using methamphetamine and cocaine. Adrianne was depressed and had engaged in self-harm activities many times. She claimed that she could hear the voice of her dead uncle. Sexual activity was not unfamiliar to Adrianne. She was extremely interested in sex and had sex frequently. The relationship between Adrianne and her birth mother, Carolyn, was unstable. This led to a major change in November 2004. 16-year-old Adrianne moved to East Moline, Illinois, to live with her grandfather and adoptive father, Tony. By this time, he was married to a woman named Joanna. The living situation in Illinois was more stable for Adrianne, but she was still a troublemaker. For instance, she refused to do homework, complaining that the only things she liked about school were lunch and friends. There was an alternative high school in the area called Blackhawk College Outreach Center. They ran a GED program. Adrianne went to the school and became friends with two other well-known troublemakers, 16-year-old Sarah Kolb and 17-year-old Corey Gregory. Sarah and Corey were strongly influenced by the disturbing musical duo Insane Clown Posse. Male fans of this expletive-loving hip-hop act refer to themselves as juggalos, whereas female fans use the name juggalettes. Sarah identified as bisexual and had an immediate romantic interest in Adrianne. It did not appear as though Adrianne was too interested. She was more focused on male classmates, like Corey. Sarah and Corey had briefly dated, and Sarah wasn't happy about Adrianne's romantic interest in Corey. In December 2004, Adrianne attended a house party which was directed by Sarah. At the party, Adrianne had sex with a male attendee. There was another party the next day where Adrianne had sex with another male partygoer. Sarah was upset by Adrianne's sexual behavior and called her a blank and a blank. These words rhyme with glut and bore. The relationship between Sarah and Adrianne was fractured, but Adrianne wanted to reconcile. On January 18, 2005, she wrote a note to Sarah asking, quote, "Why do you hate me so much, and why do you want me to die?" unquote. Now moving to the timeline of the crime. On January 21, 2005, Adrianne failed to show up to work to a local Checkers restaurant, a job she had taken just a few weeks earlier. As a result, she was reported missing. Here is what the police found during the course of their investigation. Friends said that on January 21, Adrianne left school to go to lunch with Sarah, Corey, and another friend named Sean McKittrick. They were all in Sarah's red four-door Geo Prism. The police interviewed Sarah. She confirmed that Adrianne was with her on January 21. They had driven to a local Taco Bell restaurant. Sarah explained how, while inside her vehicle in the parking lot, she started fighting with Adrianne, and the argument became physical. Aggravated with Adrianne, Sarah decided to take her home. Adrianne asked to be dropped off at a McDonald's right across the street from her house because she did not want Tony to see her in the vehicle with a boy. This was at around noon. Sarah's story did not make a lot of sense. Adrianne knew that Tony would not be home from work for hours. There was no danger of being spotted by him. The police spoke to Sean McKittrick. He told them that he witnessed a fight between Sarah and Adrianne in the vehicle and attempted to intervene, but Sarah told him to leave the vehicle, which he did. The other person in the vehicle was Corey, so the police interviewed him as well. At first, Corey acted like nothing serious happened, but a few days later, on January 25, he changed his story. Here's what Corey told the police. After Sarah ordered Sean to exit the vehicle, Corey remained inside and observed the fight between Sarah and Adrianne as it intensified. Adrianne tried to strangle Sarah, and hit her in the nose. Sarah responded by grabbing a wooden stick, which she kept for self-defense, and hitting Adrianne a couple of times. As the teenagers were fighting and wrestling, they ended up in the back seat. Sarah managed to strangle Adrianne. At first, Sarah and Corey did not think that Adrianne was dead. They were waiting for her to wake up. When they realized that she was never going to wake up, they panicked and moved her body to the trunk. They drove to a farm owned by Sarah's grandparents in Aledo, Illinois, 34 miles away. They tried to bury her, but the ground was frozen. Again, this was in January. After this, they poured gasoline on her body and set it on fire, but that did not work either. Desperate to destroy the evidence, Sarah and Corey contacted a 16-year-old friend of theirs named Nathan Grande. Corey said that Nathan was the type of kid who would go around killing animals and stuff, so he seemed like an appropriate choice as a conspirator. Nathan was happy to get involved. He used a handsaw and dismembered Adrianne's body. The trio then went to lunch at McDonald's before disposing of the body parts at the Black Hawk State Historic Site in Rock Island. Corey led the police to Adrianne's remains the same day as the interview, January 25. On February 1, 2005, Sarah Kolb and Corey Gregory were arrested and charged with first-degree murder and concealment of a homicide. Nathan Gaudette was charged with concealment of a homicide. On October 31, 2005, Sarah went to trial. 2 weeks later, the jury was unable to reach a unanimous verdict, and a mistrial was declared. The vote was 11-1 in favor of guilty. Sarah was tried again in February 2006. This time she was found guilty on all counts. In August 2006, she was sentenced. For the murder, she received a term of 48 years. For the concealment charge, 5 years. The sentences are to be served consecutively. Sarah could be released as early as 2055 at the age of 67. Corey Gregory did not take his case to trial. Rather, he opted to plead guilty to all charges. In July 2006, he received 40 years for the murder and 5 years for the concealment, to be served consecutively. Corey could be released as early as 2047 at the age of 59. Nathan Gaudette pleaded guilty to concealment of a homicide and received a sentence of 5 years. He remained in the juvenile justice system. In November 2008, Nathan was released. On April 16, 2012, when Nathan was 23 years old, he died in a motor vehicle collision in Bloomington, Indiana. The vehicle he was in failed to negotiate a curve and slammed into a tree. This caused it to burst into flames, which led Nathan and 2 other men in the vehicle to experience a horrible death. Ironically, Nathan's body was burned so badly he had to be identified with dental records. Now moving to my analysis. Here are my thoughts on a few areas that stood out to me in this case. Item number 1. Even though Sarah's first trial ended in a mistrial, it seems pretty clear she is guilty of murder. According to a witness who spoke to Sarah on the day of the killing, Sarah said that she planned on taking a girl to lunch and beating her to death with a stick. Corey said that Sarah killed Adrianne. Nathan said that Sarah confessed to the murder, and Sarah went to great lengths to destroy Adrianne's body. Sarah claimed that Corey committed the murder and she had to go along with the body disposal under the threat of death. So this was all Corey's idea. Corey actually physically perpetrated the murder while Sarah looked on in horror. He allegedly threatened to kill her, her family, and her cats. This is why she cooperated with him. This claim is difficult to believe. Sarah was more dominant than Corey. She was in charge. There is no way to know exactly what happened in Sarah's geoprism when it was in the Taco Bell parking lot. Corey claimed that it had nothing to do with the actual murder, just a cover-up, but Sarah probably could not have overpowered Adrianne by herself. It is reasonable to believe that Corey is guilty of murder, but Sarah was the driving force behind this crime. Item number 2. Sarah Kolb had a troubled history. She was angry and aggressive. A coworker claimed that she was fascinated with dead bodies. Sarah kept a journal on a website using the screen name Plays with Demons. One entry, which offers some insight into her thinking, read, quote, "It seems as if everyone is driving me crazy, and all I want to do is slaughter them like the blanking sheep they are," unquote. Sarah wrote how she was disgusted with her body and with her mind. She believed that she was ugly and looked like a dude. Item number 3. What do I think happened in this case? This is just a theory, my opinion. Adrianne, Sarah, and Corey were troubled teenagers. They all used excessive quantities of substances, including alcohol, and they had no regard for their own safety. They allowed themselves to be pulled into ridiculous and frequent drama and did not fully appreciate the consequences of their behavior. Sarah was self-centered, impulsive, immature, irresponsible, reckless, antagonistic, morbid, pessimistic, petty, vindictive, cold, callous, erratic, arrogant, argumentative, angry, violent, jealous, had a sense of entitlement, and was exceedingly creepy. She was romantically interested in Adrianne, but this feeling was not reciprocated. Adrianne was very interested in sex, just not with Sarah. This led to Sarah becoming angry and attacking Adrianne. Even though Sarah allegedly indicated she intended to kill a girl right before she killed Adrianne, I don't think Sarah planned on actually committing a murder that day. If Sarah had planned it, why would she have invited Sean to join them on the trip to Taco Bell? It doesn't make sense to add a witness to the mix. I think Sarah's plan was to non-lethally attack Adrianne, but she was surprised when Adrianne fought back so vigorously. The situation escalated from there, and Sarah killed Adrianne with Corey's help. Now moving to my final thoughts. This case is straightforward. When troubled individuals hang out together, a negative outcome should not be surprising. No one would have expected murder, but they were certainly headed for some type of bad ending, no matter what. In prison, Sarah Kolb has tried to reinvent herself. As I mentioned, she once indicated that she was ugly and looked like a dude. Well, now she identifies as Shane. Some have argued this is not so much a gender transition as a brutally honest admission. Rather than resist her masculine features, Sarah embraced them and effectively solved the problem. Corey Gregory has also experienced a surprising transformation. He now identifies as Harley Quinn. It's not clear what motivated Corey to make this big adjustment, but I would be surprised if any beauty contest trophies were on the horizon. In fairness, at a men's prison, the bar is set pretty low for the Miss Department of Corrections competition. The lucky winner gets a cold cup of instant coffee, a gold-plated shank fashioned from a toothbrush, and a year in protective custody. Those are my thoughts on the case of Adrianne Reynolds. Thank you so much for watching. I'll talk to you soon.